Oh, well, hello.
Hi, Jai. Elaine.
Hello.
Hey, Nick. Good to see you. Hey, Jim.
Hello.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Yeah.
Just gonna wait like a minute longer to see who else turns up.
Arno did mention he won't be able to make it. And I think
Here,
Jörg is at a
miss.
conference.
Okay. We've got 5, and we've got 2 developer advocates, Elaine, so let's get kicked off.
Yeah, sure thing. One sec, let me add set up. Okay, yeah, so first thing on the agenda is the sorry, just a sec. I can't remember if it's developer advocates or
DA should always be first, I believe.
sorry, what?
The developer advocates are typically always the first thing on the list.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we'd like to get an update from the developer advocates. Please go ahead.
Okay. So yeah. I wanted to, kind of like mention some of the things we've been able to do within the past couple of weeks. The top of the list is the developer experience website, right? So we've been working to set up a DevX website within the Intersect, and we've been able to publish the website. So it's devex.intersectmbo.org. And I think we've been, kind of like working hard to make sure that we kind of like put the documentation in order. So we've been working a lot on, syncing a lot of the a lot of our sessions during this DevX working group sessions to the website. So that is also, coming out well. And aside from the website, we've also been helping out with the whole working group sessions. And it's been going so well. For onboarding, we've been able to like onboard a couple of folks into the community. Personally, like one of the success story that I would want to share is someone booked an appointment through the README on the DevX repo, and I had a call with him actually yesterday, and they were able to like join the Discord, and they were able to also like gain membership, the Intersect membership. So, which is like a good testament to some of the work we've been doing. Then we've also started looking at working, or rather improving, the feedback form. Alongside it is also the developer experience survey as well. So yeah, we've kind of like had a lot of things, going on at the moment. So yeah, but these are some of the highlights that I wanted to share with the committee.
Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, so next up, we wanted to talk about procurement procurement expectations from Intersect. So I do believe we have a guest here to talk about this today. Tex, if you could take over.
I'll pass it right on to we got Gemma and then also Nick Cook.
Hello, everybody. Nice to meet the people that I haven't met before and to see some familiar faces. So I've been supporting Tex from Intersect Operations, helping to put together the statements of work, working very closely with our procurement team and our finance team to get this over the line. So I'd just like to give a bit of a status recap in terms of where we're at. So as you all know, you have 10 programs of work under the OSC Treasury proposal. We have now signed off 5 of those statements of work. So the developer advocates, the travel, the bug bounty, the tooling sustainability program, and the security incident manager role. So those are all good to go from a procurement perspective. However, we are still working to put your budget into USDM. So that kind of came as a secondary request a few weeks ago. So we've been working with our finance team and with Christian and Tex to write out the metadata, which will explain why we are taking money out of the Treasury Reserve contract and what we're doing with it in terms of putting it into USDM and the amounts, and then what would be returned back to the Treasury Reserve contract. So just to set expectations as well, it is very important that the OSC is informed on all of these decisions. Jack, Intersect ED, is the ultimate person who will sign off on all of this. However, it is very much with the input from the OSC to drive your program of work forward. So Elaine has been kindly working with us and signing the relevant documents off. So I just want to ensure, though, that it is being shared across the committee and you guys are aware of what's going on, because I don't want things to get lost and then for us to do things without you guys realizing. So can I just check that you're all aware that those 5 statements of work that I mentioned have been now signed off?
Yes, from the secretary standpoint and the chair, yeah, we have confirmation on this.
Okay, it needs to really be shared across the whole committee. That's all. So when Elaine, you're signing these things off, before you sign them off, you really should be sharing them with the rest of the committee to get their endorsement on it as well.
Yeah, I will be sharing those documents later today then.
Okay. And then once a statement of work has been signed off, we then put it up on a knowledge base so it's visible to the whole committee and the entire ecosystem, in fact, what has been signed off and then what you're working towards. So then we then go into your milestone delivery. So again, you do have quite a lot of milestones that are imminently due on these programs of work. Again, Tex has been working with us from a secretary standpoint to fill these out, collect the information. You do have a very complete OSC knowledge base, so that's fantastic to see. And a lot of the links we've taken from there. But again, these milestone acceptance forms need to be signed off by Elaine as chair and shared with the OSC broadly as the committee, so that you guys can also collaborate and input into these documents so that it's being shared properly in a very decentralized, transparent way.
Thank you.
And then if I may just continue on one more point. So the broad statements of work, so for instance, we have the developer advocate statement of work. That is the statement of work which matches up to your treasury withdrawal for that particular piece of work. However, what we've then done is we've then developed subcontracts for the particular dev advocates, of which there are 4. And those subcontracts are for OSC to manage. So Tex is tracking those regular milestones, ensuring that the budget is kept on track, ensuring that the deliverables are met, with obviously the support of OSC. So just to be clear, that subsequent delivery, once contracts have been signed off, is OSC's responsibility. And there is the accountability and responsibility of OSC in order to deliver these programs of work.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Nick, do you have anything else to add?
Not necessarily on the delivery assurance side, but I mean, for those of you who I haven't met before, I'm Nick Cook, and I'm responsible. Currently, I'm interim operations director for Intersect, and I think obviously we want you guys to succeed, and it's in our interest for you to succeed really well. But also, I think from an Intersect side and the delivery assurance side, I think sometimes we're seen as the enemy, and in actual fact, all we're trying to do is play forward what we think the areas or vectors for negativity could be from the community on certain things. And that's why we're trying to be fairly stringent on a lot of these things. And you guys have proposed a really, really ambitious program of activity and work for the next kind of 9 months. And we need to make sure that you'll actually deliver on that. Obviously, it is super, super ambitious. And I think there's a few of the programs seem quite similar to each other, which is fine. My slight concern is that because you've been so ambitious with the amount of work that you've proposed and getting done, it's making sure that it gets done to a level of quality outcomes that give the right value to the treasury money being spent, if that makes sense. And obviously we're here to help you do that in whatever capacity we can. But as we move forward, I think we need to just be cognizant of making sure that we're not just ticking boxes to get the things done that we said we were going to do, and make sure that the actual quality and metrics are there to actually deliver to the community the value for the end dollar, as it were, or the AIDA, and make sure that that's really being, or the effort is being transitioned into outcomes that are tangible. Because I think, oh, go on, Johnny.
Are you coming to make this statement today because you don't feel this has been the case so far, or is this just a preliminary statement?
Oh, no, it's certainly not. You haven't delivered anything so far that's of the right quality. Obviously, when we first went through the statement of work, we've spent a considerable amount of time trying to shape up some of the KPIs with Tex and Christian and you guys, just to make sure that that's clear to the community and that the right KPIs are being delivered. There's certainly no criticism here. I just want to make sure that we're really focused on metric delivery around these programs to really justify that they're delivering. I don't want you guys. What I'm doing is I'm thinking about the optics of 6-9 months ahead. Where could there be a vector for the community, which, or the echo chamber that can sometimes be X, to criticize some of these programs and what they have delivered and the value for money. So I just want to make sure that's at the forefront of everyone's thought process when we're going through these programs, is what do we actually need to make sure we deliver an evidence so that we can A, hit our milestones, and B, make sure the community don't really have any room for criticism.
Yeah, thank you. We'll definitely focus on making, sure all of our work that we're delivering to the community is visible. Jonathan Kelly?
Yeah, I just want to highlight that this kind of fear of response has been a constant theme throughout Intersect's history, and has actually led to a lot of ill will coming because of that level of guardedness and fear of the response. I think at least let us run it for a while and see if there's any issues come up, rather than preempting it by making statements about how they might come at us. It's a bit of an odd way to approach people that are starting a bunch of exploratory first time programs, which was highlighted in the requests. But yeah, your heart is in the right place. It just seems very scared of the community, let's say.
I'm not sure it's that. I just want to make sure that when you guys are going through the program of delivering this work, you're actually thinking about, okay, what are the right metrics for us to measure ourselves against, is the reality.
No, absolutely. No, it's definitely a required thing. But I never like to think in terms of what can I do to prevent being criticized, because you can end up completely destroying any real productivity from that fear.
I hear you 100%. And I'm not saying that you should change what you're doing based on that at all. I think it's more in line with the fact that obviously we have to delivery assure whatever's going to be done. And I just really want to make sure that this is successful for everybody, certainly the OSC, because it's a huge part of Cardano's future. And actually, it is really pivotal. And we want all of these programs to succeed. Part of my slight concern, which Christian and Tex already know about, is do you have the resources to be able to deliver all 10 of these programs, or all of the programs you're planning? And if not, how can we potentially help you with that by involving ecosystem partners or others that might manage a program for you over here? Or, I just want to make sure that you have the bandwidth
that's
required to deliver this.
One thing I'd suggest is maybe taking on another open source office full-time member of staff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. The only slight issue with that is we don't have budget for it. We might need to find that.
This is the problem, right? So we either will or won't deliver, and we'll certainly try to at the best of our ability. Yeah, but if we don't have the resources, this is because we didn't have the resources, not because of any lack of will.
Sure. I mean, obviously, Tex has been what I would call a very malleable resource for Intersect, and has worked excellently across a number of our domains. And I think having the amount of workload now that's required in the next kind of 9 months, Tex is moving back more into I would say, a solidified open source role. And we're unburdening him with those other responsibilities so that he can spend pretty much 100% of his resource time within open source. So we're hoping that will help. And there is an acknowledgement that we do realize that resource is required. Because when we went through the statement of work, I think we looked at that and thought, it's super ambitious, which is good, but can it all be delivered, and how can we support that? So if we can support it with additional resource, we obviously will. I think that's another discussion we need to have around what that might look like, or how we could potentially provide that. Or is there the opportunity to outsource some of the programs that you've got planned to ecosystem partners who can take up the load on one or two of those, maybe?
I think that outsourcing aspect is actually coming up in this agenda with some of the items, such as the the Summer of Code and Accelerator program. But we're not going to get ahead of ourselves.
Perfect. No, that's great. And look, I think one of the other important things is, look, if you're struggling to deliver certain things, come and speak to us and we'll see what we can do to support and help. It may be that we can move a resource around for a period of time to help with certain things. We're just cognizant of the workload that you've proposed and want to make sure that, you know, we can help you to deliver that as and where we can.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll definitely reach out, like, you know, and if we need any additional like resources and stuff. Gemma, please.
Yes, it's Gemma.
Oh, Gemma, my
That's
apologies.
okay. That's okay. I have just put a link in the channel, in the chat, sorry, which is the link to the Intersect knowledge base, which has the signed off SWs for the Treasury budget this year. So you'll find 3 of yours on there. I think it would be great, and I don't know if you guys do this, but to track those milestones in your sessions so that you know what's coming up, what we'll be requesting, and then that will also help you track it with your tracking of the subsequent milestones. So for developer advocates, for example. So again, using dev advocates as an example, at the end of this quarter, we will be asking for progress reports for those dev advocates, and it covers 3 months. Now, I know that dev advocates get paid on a monthly basis, so maybe collecting monthly evidence from those dev advocates, and then you have that prepared for when we then come and ask for the quarterly evidence for that particular program, if that makes sense. So just a way of thinking about how you guys can do this in a sort of timely fashion, so it doesn't come as a shock when the Treasury milestones are due.
Yeah, thank you. We'll formalize more of the you know, discussion that we've been having about this.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else that either of you would like to say about about this topic?
I don't think there's anything from my side. Obviously, you know, we're here to help and support as and when you might need it. Whether that's with advice on things, whether we can provisionally provide some resources as we previously discussed, maybe for a couple of weeks here and there, if there's things that are running short on deadlines or, you know, over capacity. So, you know, we're here to help as and where we can.
Thank you. Did somebody raise their hand? I can't. Oh,
yeah, me
Jonathan Kelly.
again. Sorry. I've just got one question, Nick and Gemma. You guys are aware of the previous discussions that have been had around using something like Andamio as a management tool, right? For milestones and deliverables, just to make sure things are trackable. Is that something you're personally in favor of, or have reservations about?
I mean, I think there's some ongoing discussions around that anyway, around that happening. There's a couple of discussions. One is around that, which hasn't progressed too far as yet, and I think will be part of the budget committee discussions. Personally, I'm in favour of the best tool for the job. And then there's another discussion around that also, around how we facilitate monthly stipend payments to committee members. And that's one that I think is advancing at a little bit more of a pace. But I'm always in favour of the best tool for the job.
And just to add to that, I think that we have had some issues, for example, with the maintainer retainer program. Being able to pay 50 maintainers on a monthly basis is just not something that we're currently able to do from an operational perspective at Intersect. So thinking about a platform like Andamio that could facilitate that as a third-party provider is a really good idea. And we'd be really open to hearing the pros and cons to using that tool versus another tool, for example.
Yeah, well, we've since the last time there was some, let's say, ignorant on my part statements made against Andamio being used, but having since seen the demo and played with it myself and seen that they're adding USDM as a distribution method, or any Cardano native token as a distribution method under a milestone, a deliverable task. This is good for the future, fit for the kind of operations you're needing. And then the people would have their work signed off based on the evidence they submit against the deliverable. and be able to claim that money themselves. So you wouldn't be burdened with having to manage the 50 payments. It would happen as and when people submitted their own evidence.
Yeah, exactly that. That is definitely something that we're keen to look into a bit more.
Thank you. Well, with those contributions out of the way, I believe we can move on to the next topic, which actually has to do with the same type of outsourcing things to vendors process, which is the Google Summer of Code like vendors. So there are 3 in particular that we are considering right now, and that's MLabs, C#, and Newcast. I wanted to have the OSO team talk a little bit more about like these potential vendors, because the OSO team has been doing some of that, doing like a lot of that communication and stuff. Was MLabs the one who, Tex, you can answer this. Like, was MLabs the organization that proposed the really like budget efficient stuff in India?
No,
Oh,
so
sorry,
yeah,
I didn't
Christian's here too,
hear.
but yeah. So the thing is, with MLabs, they were actually one of the first ones to take a closer look at what our offerings were and see how they could get involved. And so this is something that they're really primed to do based on what their organizational structure looks like and how they've run their previous cohorts and onboarding of like developers and whatnot. So they were actually the first ones to reach out to us. The India side of things came through from C#, and then also essentially a partnership or a split thereof from Newcast. But at that point, I would pass it off to Christian.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so MLabs is very strategic in LATAM, Europe, and US to do part of this program. They already have some point people in universities to connect there. The only thing I think that the OSC is critique to is it's very Haskell oriented. So we do need to adjust the curriculum to reflect that. But to get more bang for buck too, I did connect with C# because they have big hackathons that go in India. They are proposing to do up to 20 universities for half the budget. They just need some partnership to accommodate that. So I contacted Newcast. Newcast is more than wanting to participate. And we'll potentially get up to 2,000, 2,500 students. Newcast did verify that the C# numbers are accurate, and C# already has memorandums of understanding with all those universities. They're just waiting for us to pick that core curriculum, and we can choose the universities in particular from their roster. So
yes. So in terms of like what is Newcast's role like with the potential like India like stuff? Because I'm not super clear on how they help C#.
Yeah, C# is very familiar with the C# movement or the program language. A long time ago, they built up a 3 million dev community. They just recently joined Cardano. Newcast is the Cardano native team in India that does the Cardano Codex every year. So it would be wise to tap Newcast's Cardano SME presence or subject matter experts with C# and actually can train their teams to be familiar to run this university program. So that way you have more than enough resources. Adam?
I might be misremembering what a summer of code is exactly, but are we just trying to stipend a bunch of people that are already inside of the Cardano ecosystem here, or are we trying to bring in new greenfield contributors that are not aware of what Cardano is through? I thought it was like selective kind of sponsorship to give students a little bit of cash over the summer by giving them a programming task, and then away they go. And then usually, the top candidates get an internship at Google or something. What are we trying to accomplish by like just pamping it with giant Indian numbers, essentially? Sorry if you're from India, but you guys have a metric ton of people there. But it's just about the raw number of people. We also want to attract talent.
No, that's the point. So, talking with Mahesh at C#, since they've done a lot of this, he's actually arguing that it's harder to do it during the summer because that's when students are on break. So he can actually integrate it into their course curriculum, both in the spring and fall semesters. That way, you're actually integrating the technology with their degrees, and that will facilitate more participation. And the program runs about 2 months for their participation.
Adam?
Well, I'm just going to go on record as saying again, this is like a material change to what the scope of the project and the budget was. You know, like everybody wants to get a big pile of money, and I'm sure M Labs and C# and everybody is interested in getting their partner commission cut off of helping us with this project. But when you completely change the scope and it's no longer a summer of code, does it match what the voters approved during the budget process? If it's just yet another one of these, we've seen it over and over in Catalyst. Oh, we're going to partner with XYZ college, and then they're going to add 2 sentences about Cardano in a curriculum somewhere, and so give us 100,000 ADA or something. It again, very bait and switchy versus just actually running the program as specified or giving the money back.
Well, that's the thing, Adam. The only specification we had was involving students in programs, potential internships to come about from it. We never had anything detailed, so I had MLabs put a proposal together that's open to scrutiny. And then to not just give it to one vendor, I pulled in the other experts that have done this in India, and there's a counter thing there. So it is for us to frame how we want to do the program. These are just vendors that have reached 2 universities that we can integrate the scope to. So it's completely open to be worked.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of disagree with you there, Christian. I think you're playing a little bit too fast and loose with your own definitions. We called it a summer of code. We literally referenced Google Summer of Code, which is a very well understood program in the open source and developer community. So again, pivoting it to 3 universities in India are going to mention Cardano in their course curriculum is a very, very substantial shift away from what we were aiming to do.
So I before we like discuss this further, I'd like to, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to request that we get those documents like on the proposals, like from M Labs and C# shared, so that we can like, concretely look at like what, the vendors would do for the programs.
Yeah, they're already in the
Okay.
Discord. I know some people, not everyone's familiar with it, and we can catch up. I'm happy to do a work draft session on this. This is just the beginning groundwork of trying to scope out how we do it, since the original proposer isn't able to help run the program. So.
Yeah, Tex?
I would just mention, at least as far as my understanding, I haven't had a chance to explore this deeper yet, because this is one of the closer to the tail end programs that we'd be specking on as far as the statements of work are concerned. My understanding when this was brought to our attention as a formal proposal was that it was designed to specifically follow what the program is asking for. At the very least, that coming from the M Labs proposal. So what I would suggest is as I get a chance to deeper review this, I would essentially look at the Newcast and/or C# proposals to ensure that they integrate directly following essentially what's proposed here, and then again a double verification against what the program we actually desire to put forth to ensure that there's alignment across all of them. If not, obviously that would require either redrafting or just not being accepted. I believe this is just a general notice of let's start to review these deeper. I don't know that this is up for a decision quite as of yet.
Yeah, I'm in agreement that I don't think we can make a decision on it. I had my like own personal opinions about this stuff also, like of like the M Labs program in particular. Like we want to minimize much of the Haskell focus. I have reasons that I don't necessarily have like the time to like deliver right now, but I think that like what would be appropriate is to schedule a meeting like on this, because we need to consider like both the proposals and stuff. We need to consider how much budget that we want to actually allocate towards everything, because the last time I checked, the C# stuff would dominate like the budget spending. So we want to have like a, you know, like if we want like a diversity in terms of, and I think we do, like in terms of like vendors and like geographic locations and stuff. Yeah, I think like getting like a meeting convened on this would be very helpful. Sorry, yeah, Jonathan Kelly.
Hello again. Yeah, just to follow on from Adam's position on this, I'm just quoting from the rundown of how contributors work for Google Summer of Code. Potential GSOC contributors contact the mentor organizations they want to work with and write a project proposal based on ideas the organization has suggested. Once accepted, the contributors spend a few weeks becoming familiar with the community norms and code base while determining expected milestones with their mentor for the summer. Specifically, contributors then spend 12 plus weeks coding on their projects. There's a source link for the minutes of that quote. So this is Adam was saying it's very much modeled in the budget on the Google Summer of Code being referenced, and this is their rundown of how that would work. So any deviation is potentially relevant.
Thank you. Christian?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify. We were just trying to get bang for buck here. It wasn't, I think I presented it more as a numbers thing. So just clarifying that that wasn't the intent. And I was just talking to education providers to get better scope of how people have already done this. And to your point, Adam, I definitely want to avoid that kind of scam that goes on. That's why I thought there was potential with this, considering it's mentors focusing students towards project ideas. And then we can line it up to internship opportunities with providers in the ecosystem.
If it follows the same kind of mentor project 12-week program, but just shifts it from being the summer, I wouldn't really have that much objection if it's the same model. When it happens, I think isn't, even though it's called Summer of Code, if it's the same outcome with the same students at a different time frame, I think the community wouldn't be hateful of that.
My main question is about like the internships, like that they would do, like how much of the time, like how much of the mentorship time and like how much of the budget and stuff would be allocated towards getting them to like make contributions and stuff, or would that just be like external follow-up thing? Tex, yeah.
Yeah, I'll circle back briefly to the fact that I ran into the current leader of the Google Summer of Code program. I did set up or basically kind of propose, hey, can I reach out to you when we have it organized? So I would just suggest let's kind of take this offline, get it figured out, and then actually submit that over for review. And see what we can do just to make sure that there is alignment, and there is a lot of flexibility with it as well. But again, I'll explain that differently in the other meeting. We can still take other comments, but we could also move on. So,
yeah, thank you. I'm in preference towards like moving on because I think we got to cover like a bit more stuff. But you know, getting the Google Summer of Code creator to review stuff would be fantastic. So. Yeah, let's schedule like a follow-up to this outside of just the normal cadence. Okay, then we can move on to the accelerator program vendors. Oh, yeah, Christian?
Yeah, I can speak to this one too. So Chris Kowalski won't be able to join, but we did have a conversation with Chris Baird about trying to connect with a service provider that was going to speak at Dev Connect, who's connected to a bunch of VCs and stuff, but given the timetable and her actual costs, we will have to drop that and replan it for a later integration possibly. But to the actual program, I'm still keeping the proposal for this as 3 different workshops that run 2 to 3 sessions throughout the next year, focused on commercial open source software, technical validation, market fit, and mock pitch building. I'm finding vendors for the latter two. We do have the commercial open source software one lined up for 5K. Cheap, they're familiar with this, and they are angel investors on the side, so there's potential opportunities there for projects. But the idea is if you run through each circuit, each of the workshops run different timings. If you get through all three, you're certified for this. And we did talk to the Cardano Foundation Venture Hub to try and set up kind of different pathways and bigger opportunities with this as an ecosystem. So we're focused more on the educational side of this and building bridges for projects to have options to do different things. So I'll have a more detailed outbreak of that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, thank you. In terms of like the two vendors with this, so my at least my personal priority, I think is going to sound a lot like what other people have said as well, that connections to VCs is the number one most important thing. Making sure that we get those connections established and stuff, because I've ran a Cardano business before, and it's the getting capital aspect is quite difficult and stuff. So Christian, could you speak a little more as to both of these providers connections to VCs? You said one of them I believe is an angel investor on the side, right? Which one would that be?
So that's with our open source legal support. They offer free legal services for people wanting to know about business licensing and stuff. They're already successful entrepreneurs, so they are angel investors on the side of projects wish to pursue that. They're called the Chinstrap community. The other lady is someone who is called Fractal. She's the one who Catalyst was going to help sponsor, but they didn't have the budget in their program. So that's why when they connected with us, there was a potential opportunity there, but she wanted 85K. They negotiated down to 65K. And because it was only an 8-week extension to actually get programs involved, it was way too close for that much money for only a 8-week program to launch. So we're going to restructure that for 2026 at some point. So that's where those connections come in. Now Hadley hand it over to Andrew as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christian. Hey, Christian, when you talked to Cardano about this, did they mention Techstars? Because they did a very sophisticated incubation workshop in Switzerland last year, I think, with Cardano or with Catalyst, I believe.
Yeah, we've already discussed Techstars, Draper U, and there's another one. Mm-hmm. Those programs are separate to this. We're trying to build something that's more Cardano native in a sense, because Techstars, they take on projects, but they have their own Silicon Hub thing going on. So we're trying to build.
They did a Catalyst Cardano centric only one.
Yeah, but the idea was, or at least from what I was told, is that with that, they focus on those projects being in their own internal network, not necessarily they're here only for Cardano, is the idea coming from John and Chris. So that's why they wanted this education series to tie into these multiple paths. It's, but yeah.
So this is what you're talking about here. What is a pathway for Intersect-driven projects to get funding?
No, the idea here is there's different grant mechanisms within Cardano. Right. This is to provide you expertise to prepare your project to go into these environments, is the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the budget assigned to the accelerator is not anything worth investment type stuff. So.
Okay, it's to provide pre-funding or funding prep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think of it as you got either your pre-catalyst, you need to know how to write your proposal, or your post-catalyst, you have an MVP. How do you actually build a business model, investor deck, and make sure you have the right market fit? And then you could go into multiple pathways of Techstars, Draper U, get exposure in a demo day via the CF Venture Hub. or we have a partnership with Killer Whales, trying to see if you want to go on their TV show, like Shark Tank version, but for Cardano. So.
But is Catalyst one of the gateways to the or steps, required steps in this path?
Currently, outside of treasury withdrawals, that's kind of the only benefactor for grant funding. Yeah, at the moment.
Is it, well, I mean, that might be like the reality of like a lot of Cardano stuff currently, but I don't think that like is that the aim? Because like, at least in my head, like, you know, it would be very good to connect like with like VC, like in particular, so that like Catalyst is not like the only option, you know?
Well, and Catalyst is refining their scope. That's why we engaged Chris to find out what they're doing. But the idea is with the CF Venture Hub team, they actually want to build it outside of CF and kind of have like an independent consortium that helps coordinate all these different opportunities and all the actors. Because right now there's not really a roadmap for what's available to you. It's just whatever you find on your X feed most of the time.
There are certainly for good ideas, good teams who have the have a reasonable business model, there are certainly pathways with less friction available for funding.
What do you mean? Sorry, I'm not.
Well, Catalyst is very prescriptive. I went through. I put a project because I wanted to learn more about it. So I put a project through the last round, and it's a. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Catalyst, but it's a bit of a ponderous approach to getting funding. It's an approach. It's a qualifying approach. It's one that's obviously very community centric, which is great, but there are other pathways to get funding.
Yeah. Makes sense. Tex?
Yeah, apologies. I didn't want to get into the middle of this or stop communication, but would like to mention that there is the commercialization utility working group, which that name can change if needed, but we should ensure that there's additional OSC support provided there, and if a cadence change is needed for that working group, that we again move the conversation there, just so we keep things running for the sake of the meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, like we can move on now. Next up on the agenda is we should review sorry. We'd like to review the new incubation project, or the new like projects that have applied to the incubation program. So first up we have IOSIM. Sorry, Tex.
Yeah. We skipped the cadence one. I know I mentioned I didn't mean to do that, but I'm just going to highlight the next scheduled meeting would normally have been for the 13th, but that's happening basically during the Cardano Summit. So just quick and wide, if there's no qualms, we'd essentially move back and meet on the 6th. Kind of change the biweekly cadence at that point, meet again on the 20th. 27th is a US holiday. And the likelihood is that we would meet 4, 11, and 18 to polish off things before the end of the year, rather before the holidays. So again, 6 and 20 of November, and then 4, 11, 18 in December. So 5 more meetings this year.
Do we need a motion to like schedule like this?
I don't know that one needs to be one formally, but it should probably be more than just an announcement.
Okay, yeah, I'm personally like in favor of this.
I have no objections.
Okay, I'll get it scheduled. Sorry, continue.
Oh, all good. So there's been new projects that have applied to the incubation program, and they're ready for us to review. And I wanted to see if we could like chat about them like briefly before the end of the meeting. The first one on this list is IOSIM. They all have very Haskell sounding like names. Yeah, who was it that like was like super? Yes, Christian, please.
So the proposal for these, I'll have these sent to the committee at sometime after the call. I got a copy of the proposals over from ClickUp, but the idea is it came from the Ouroboros network team. There's two that are Haskell related, IOSIM and I think it's typed protocols. The other one is CERDOC, which ties into KES agent, which is still an open item for discussion. But the idea is the IOE teams want this to come under Intersect. They already have maintainers associated with the work. So the idea is that they would continue that under their proposal. And no additional funding required, though they're the maintainers for it. But I already informed the technical steering committee yesterday, so I'm going to send it to both committees by end of today. I just got to get that
together. Yeah, Adam Dean.
Yeah, I'll just kind of repeat my concerns from the TSC yesterday for the sake of the open source meeting. But I'm a bit worried that we get mandated and told by essentially one of our contractors which repositories Intersect must own and manage and maintain going forward. It was raised up that these are, what do you call it? Requirements or dependencies for down for some of the Cardano node, but so is the entire Haskell programming language stack. And so there's only so much that we can be responsible for as the Cardano community. So like a lot of these things, you know, they might have funding this year, but that just is going to increase the size of the ask for treasury maintenance dollars for next year. So I don't want to just accept everybody's project unless a really strong case can be made that Intersect is the one and only source for this to be maintained. If these were previously being managed and maintained by well-typed or IO, there's no reason why they can't keep doing that. I don't see that just because it's a dependency of Cardano node, it has a fit within Intersect's owned repository scope, essentially. And yes, these are all 3 Haskell libraries that are used somewhere.
Yeah, so I think my personal opinion on like any Haskell libraries that would be maintained, that would be like that would fall under the like incubation program. I think it would be good to find out like exactly what IO wants out of this basically, because you know, Christian, do you remember how much like funding is like allocated to the incubation like project program, like in terms of like per project stuff? Because if I recall correctly, it's not like super high.
The incubation program, all it gets is OSO stock head, basically. There's no funding associated with the program. The projects themselves have to do the treasury withdrawals and or their primary contractors. So think of it like Pragma, where Amaro's separate committee went and got a treasury withdrawal action to support the project, but Pragma itself did not. So similar with our incubation program, we're here to steward open source best practice and stuff and provide a rating and livelihood to the project, but we are not going to maintain it for them, and we're not here to fund them. So basically, if IOE has funding this year, obviously they're working on these projects. But the question comes back to Adam, and that's why we instituted this process, is because last year we were given a Cardano CLI wallet project called Cardominal. That project didn't get a support contract, therefore TXPipe, who is the vendor, forked it, maintained it on their end, and we have no purpose for it on our end. I'm going to put forth a proposal to sunset that since there's already a clone and we don't have a use case for it, unless the community or committees decide otherwise. But that's why we have this incubation program, because it serves any project coming under Intersect. Both the TSC and OSC agree that should be stewarded here under a vendor neutral banner for the community. So that's the only purpose for this. Go ahead.
I guess the concern is, are we going to see repeat instances of things coming in under Intersect being forked and then being sunsetted? Is that going to be a continuous sort of churn?
That only existed for Cardominal because there wasn't a contract signed there. But yeah, I mean, this could happen to any project that doesn't meet the annual requirements of returning to green under our lifecycle framework. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just like to say, like, my personal opinion on like the incubation program is, I don't think we have to be super conservative, like with respect to like I don't think we have to be like super conservative in advance, like on like how much like Haskell like stuff like we support, because I mean, like the typed protocols thing of like, what is this, like serialization or robust session type no, that's a different thing, but like one of these is serialization, I think CERDOC and stuff. I think this stuff is all I think like I should not say that I think it is all. I think at least some of this seems like a good, like a thing, a good potential like fit. So, yeah, I mean, there is like the concern about like how much resources in terms of like time that we're putting into it, but like I don't think that we necessarily have to like prematurely optimize too much on this, especially because we're not giving like anybody money on this. Christian?
Yeah, if Andrew's up to it, he can explain also, because he was the open source officer for Hedera and why they moved to the LFDT with Hyro. If you want to speak about that incubation, Andrew.
Sure. Yeah, the idea is originally Hashgraph was open source by license. That decision had been made a few years prior, but it was not open source by behavior. In other words, it was technically under an open source license, but it was still a very, very closed community with very low participation. And the ecosystem dApp builders, ISVs there wasn't really a effective structure for them to contribute and participate. So the idea was to fully open source, and to put it, the reason for putting underneath the LFDT was that that created a truly, one, they have a ton of expertise in doing this, and it helped provide a structure, it helped provide credibility, and it helped really, we used it as kind of a forcing function to create a kind of best practices governance model based on CNCF, which in the open source ecosystem has really become kind of the model that people look to. They customize it for their own context, but we based the overall Hyro governance model on a CNCF with some tweaks for the ecosystem and who the original founders were and so on. So anyway, that was the overall reason, and it was a big and gnarly project, but I see it seems to be chugging along, and being a part of the LFDT certainly was the right decision.
Thank you. Yeah, we're about at time here. So we did actually have like some time allocated after like this main meeting to be doing like the next item. So I think we're okay on this, like the MRP program and next steps. Yeah, so anybody who would like to stick around for that, of like getting the like maintainer retainer program hashed out, Sebastian will be leading on this.
Yeah, you have to go. No worries about it. But in this 1 minute, we can put on the table the points, the main points of the topic, and you can go. We can work on that on Discord asynchronously. Please click on the MRP next steps. Elaine, please. The main points are we need to first interviewing interview schedule of candidates. If you go to you can go to the MRP next steps. Elaine, please. All right, thanks a lot. Thanks. These are the.
Sorry to interrupt you, but like real quick, Tex had his hand raised. Tex?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to signify closure of the main public meeting here, because this now transitions into an OSC work session.
Okay.
If we get into the actual applications,